Hola, clase. So now is the time in our Spanish careers where we need to put the two past tenses together, the pretérito and the imperfecto, because in real life you're not going to be using one or the other. They get used together, just like we do in English, even though we just have one past tense. So we're going to go over the uses of each tense and then see a couple of examples. So we're going to start with el pretérito y los usos del pretérito. So the first use you have for the pretérito is to indicate a completed action. All right. Something, an action that has a definite beginning and a definite end. All right. For example, ella me llamó 3 veces. All right. In this case, we're using the pretérito llamó because she called me 3 times. Remember that the pretérito is like the ed in English. All right. Those calls definitely have a beginning and an end. Okay. The second use of the pretérito we have is that the action happened during a limited or a specific amount of time. All right, these are going to have trigger words that we're going to look out for. All right, so in our examples, yo hablé con María ayer. I spoke with Maria yesterday. Our trigger is ayer, or yesterday. It's telling us it happened at a specific time, or in this case it would be a limited time. We know that it happened at some point during yesterday. All right. Yo trabajé por la mañana. All right, I worked in the morning. Por la mañana is our limited amount of time in the morning. All right, some other expressions we have down here. We have anoche, last night. El año pasado, last year. La semana pasada, last week. Ayer, yesterday. Anteayer, the day before yesterday. This phrase we're not going to worry too much about. All right, but these are not the only phrases you'll see. There will be others. These are just, I gave you some of the common ones here. All right. So that second use deals with trigger words. All right. The third use, we use the pretérito with expressions of actions that happened once. All right. For example, ella cerró la puerta y apagó la luz. All right, she closed the door and turned off the light. You can only, at any given time, close a door once. All right, think about it. If you close a door, it's already closed. You can't close it any further. Or if you turn off the light, once it's off, you can't turn it off anymore. So that's what I mean by a once verb. Obviously, you can shut doors repeated times, but the action itself can only happen once. You'd have to open the door again in order to be able to shut it. All right, so a couple of once verbs. Again, these are not the only ones, but these are some of the more common ones. You have empezar and comenzar Both are to begin or to start. Cerrar, to close. Llegar, to arrive. Salir, to leave. Levantarse, to get up. Sentarse, to sit down. Entrar, to enter. Apagar, to turn off. All right. And my last note down here, he says they're only used with the preterite if there's no repetition. So if you're talking about something that you do, maybe your daily routine, using, levantarse, that every day you get up at 6. All right. Because that would be a repetition, which we're going to see in a little bit, repetitions fall under the imperfecto. So if you were using it in that sense, if you were using one of these verbs in that sense, then you would use it as the imperfect. But if you're just using as it happened, it's over, we're moving on, then you're using it with the pretérito. All right, the fourth use of the pretérito we have is as the interrupter. The interrupter of an ongoing action. And this ongoing action is going to be in the pretérito. All right, so it's going to be going on, all right, which is going to be this part. And then this action is going to interrupt it and stop it. We're going to see an example when we go over that for the imperfecto uses. All right, so these are the 4 uses of the pretérito: completed action, limited or specific amount of time, once verbs, and the interrupter of an ongoing action. All right. Think of it this way, the interrupter. We have, here we go. This is a river. All right. Our river's flowing. It's the ongoing action. It's this right here, our river. Now, comes along a beaver. All right. And the beaver builds a dam. All right, right here. This is our, over here. This dam is interrupting the flow of the river because now we have, less stuff trickling out or whatever. That's what I mean by we have something that's ongoing and then we have an interrupter. All right. But again, you will see that in our example down below. Okay. Let's go on to the usos del imperfecto. All right, we've kind of mentioned the first one before when we first started the imperfect. We use this to express what was happening or what used to happen. All right, so you would replace whatever verb you're using, you would just replace the happen in here. So was dancing, used to dance, for example. All right, so an example, yo llegaba al colegio a las 8. I used to arrive. All right, we have our imperfecto, used to arrive. La maestra explicaba la lección a los estudiantes. Right, explicaba was explaining. All right, so that's one use. The other is used to express what happened a repeated number of times. In the past. All right, again, these are going to have trigger words. All right. Yo veía a Elena Después de colegio, todos los días. All right, I used to see Elena. We have a veía, used to see, okay, what used to happen. But now we have this phrase, todos los días. All right, every day. All right, because it happened a repeated number of times, it happened every day, this is going to tell us that we are using the imperfecto. Some other expressions for repetition, we had todos los días, every day. That being said, you could also have cada día, that means the same thing every day. You could have a menudo, which is often, I wrote that in there for you. Frecuentemente, frequently, generalmente. All right, los lunes, on Mondays. All right, if you, and this would go if you could have any other day of the week here. Los martes, los domingos, whatever. All right, this next one's a big one. You're going to see this one a lot. Siempre. Siempre is a big trigger. It means always. Muchas veces, many times. All right. All right, so that's our trigger there. The third use of the imperfecto is to describe people, places, settings of a story, the time, scenery. That just means, if you're telling time, or if you're saying, a long time ago, the weather, if you're talking about the weather, and if you're talking about describing animals. All right, so in the cases, our examples, we have a couple here. La casa era muy pequeña, the house was small, describing the house. Elena tenía ojos azules y pelo rubio. She had blue eyes and blonde hair. Eran las 8 de la noche. It was 8 at night. All right, these are all describing. We're describing the house in the first one. In the second one, we're describing Elena. And the third one, we are telling time. So we're describing our time scenery there. All right. My last two here, all right, deals when you have more than one verb in your section of sentence that you're dealing with. All right, so we can use it with the pretérito. All right, so we're using the imperfecto with the pretérito to describe what was going on when something else happened. All right, that was that interrupter that we talked about before. Okay, so here's our example sentence. Paco leía cuando Elena entró. All right, so Paco was reading. That's our imperfecto. And then Elena entró. She came in. She entered the room. All right, think about what happens when you are, remember this is our little river, the leía, and then our entró is our beaver dam. All right, so put yourself in Paco's position here. All right, if you are reading, you're into a really, really good book, and then all of a sudden, your friend or your sister, Elena, comes in. All right, what are most likely are you going to do when she comes in? Hopefully you're thinking about looking up from the book. Okay, you're breaking your eye contact and your concentration with your reading. Her coming in is interrupting you reading. All right, so that's what we mean by that. This this rule of use, you'll see cuando, all right, for when. But don't think that every time you see cuando that we're going to have this this fourth rule, because we do have that phrase. Do you remember this? Cuando era niño o niña, when I was a kid. All right. So that phrase, that's going to kind of like disproving this as always being a trigger word. All right. You don't want to worry about all that. All right. And then your fifth use is again using with two verbs. This gets used with mientras. This is your trigger for this rule. Mientras means while, so it's used with mientras to express two simultaneous actions. All right, two actions going on at the same time that don't interrupt each other. All right, so it's almost like, I'll stick with my little river illustration. We have one river flowing over here, doing its thing. Here's a grassy area. All right, and we have a second river on this side. All right. They're not interacting with each other. They're not interrupting each other. They're just going on, doing their thing at the same time. So here's your example. Ana cocinaba mientras Pepe hacía la tarea. So Anna was cooking while Pepe was doing his homework. All right. Anna's cooking is not interrupting Pepe, and Pepe's homework, with him doing his homework, is not interrupting Anna. All right, so the two actions can go on at the same time with no interruptions. All right. Now it comes time to using these rules of use. When we do so, all right, we're going to, I might ask you to label the rule of use. All right, so by putting either an I for imperfect or a P for pretérito, and then whatever rule of use that it fits under. So for example, if we saw a sentence that had one of these expressions for repetition down here, all right, if we saw a sentence like yo veía a Elena después del colegio todos los días, because we have a trigger word here, all right, I'm going to identify this sentence falling under this rule too. So I would write, next to the sentence, I'm going to write it up here though because I have more room. Okay, the I for imperfect, and then 2 for rule 2. So if I ever ask you for your rules of use, that's what I mean. If we're talking about, some kind of a description, the house was small, I would write I for imperfect and 3. Okay. In the case of our sentences down here, if you're using this rule 4, all right, both of your imperfect and preterite rules are going to be 4. All right, so you'd have imperfect 4 for what was going on, and then this I would do P for pretérito, and then 4 as the interrupter. All right, I5, I5. For our two simultaneous actions, if you use I5, they both have to be I5 because they're going on at the same time. If it's just what was happening or what used to happen, no other rule can really fit very well, you can use I1. I1. All right. So here, cerró la puerta. Okay, so this has two verbs in it, but they're not, since they're both things that happen once, I'm going to write P for pretérito, and this is rule 3. P for pretérito, rule 3. Things that happen once. When I have a limiting expression, a trigger word, for a specific amount of time, that would be P2. And if it's just talking about some completed action in the past, P1. All right, if you have any questions, again, feel free to send me a message. Come stop by my office hours, and I'll be happy to answer any questions you might have. Until